Hello, welcome back to Learn Economia. Today we are going to discuss the assumptions of macroeconomics. So let's have a look onto the same. Here, in order to understand the assumption of macroeconomics or the assumptions that we would be following in macroeconomics, first of all, we should understand what is called macroeconomics. So we have already done several videos regarding the same, which looks on to the basic aspect of macroeconomics. It is a field of economics that deals with what is called aggregates. So when we consider the aggregates part of economy, we consider something like GDP, we consider something like national income, we consider the entire economy, or we consider the economy as a whole. So this is the analysis of economy by treating the economy as a whole. Now, when we consider certain assumptions to be there in macroeconomics, or when we consider something called assumptions in building the theories or models in macroeconomics, the basic intention is to set some preconditions and then build the theory. So what we do here is that we will be forming some preconditions, and we see that the theory works only when we meet these conditions, only when these conditions are followed. So when such kind of an attempt is made, what we are doing is we are simplifying the analysis. And the purpose of assumptions is again to simplify the analysis part. So having said so, let's go on to see the different assumptions that we would be following in macroeconomics. The first assumption that we are having here is called the ceteris paribus assumption. So what does it mean by the ceteris paribus assumption? This is also followed in microeconomics. So this is actually a Latin phrase that deals with all other things being equal. So when we treat the relationship between two variables, what happens is that just think about something called a correlation, a direct correlation that is happening here. So here we would be treating only two variables, and all the other variables affecting any of these two variables would be treated as something constant. So all variables except those under our consideration are held as constant here. Again, why are we doing this? This would be simplifying our analysis. The second assumption that we are taking in macroeconomics is rational expectations. So people are rational in decision making. So we do have different kind of entities in our economy. We do have consumers, we do have producers, we do have government, we do have other entities in our economy. So all these entities would be making some decisions, and these decisions would be for their welfare. So what these people would be doing is that, or what these entities would be doing here is that they would be framing their decisions based on all the available information. And why this is being done? This is being done because of the scenario of risk and uncertainty. So our future is actually uncertain, and we cannot predict our future with 100% accuracy. So whatever we can do here to reduce risk is just collect as much as information as possible. So this would be aiding us to have some decision that would be influencing our future, and this will not lead to more forecasting errors. So people, they do not systematically make any forecasting errors. They will be trying to collect as much as information as possible before making a decision so as to reduce the element of risk in their decision making situation. Now, the next important assumption that we have in macroeconomics would involve the homogeneous units assumption. So we just assume that all factors, for example, just take all labor. All laborers, this would be similar. So we are not actually taking into consideration the differences that you can have in actual life here. In actual life, what happens? If we have people like A, B, C, D, E, and F, these different people will be having different capacity. They would be having skills, and their skills would be different. So we might be dealing with something called skill differences. This is what we do have in reality, but we are not taking this into consideration as far as assumptions are set in macroeconomics. Again, we are trying to simplify the analysis by assuming that all the actors would be behaving in the same fashion. So if you look on to the case of some classical theories, the theories put forward by the classical economists, they also treat the same. They also consider labor as something called homogeneous units. All are the same. All laborers are the same only. Laborers will be again, they are not heterogeneous. This is what is assumed. But again, this is only for the sake of simplicity. When it comes to reality, this is not what is actually happening. In reality, everyone is not equal. Now, the other important assumptions that we have in macroeconomics is called perfect competition. So what does it mean by perfect competition? It is an ideal market structure. So perfect competition is the ideal form of market structure, right? Ideal means it is perfect, and that is why we are talking about a perfect competition scenario. So it deals with homogeneous product, it deals with free entry and exit. It is actually simplifying the market analysis, but when it comes to reality, it has no connection with the real world condition. In reality, everything is imperfect. For example, just take the case of information. In perfect competition, we have perfect information scenario. So perfect information just means the symmetry situation. Symmetry in information. So if you have two persons, buyer and seller, dealing with a transaction, we deal with a symmetry situation with respect to information. That means that both the buyer and the seller will be having same information regarding the product. But in reality, this is not happening. In reality, we do have what is called imperfect competition. And for the very same reason, we do have something called imperfect information, or we call it as information asymmetry. Information asymmetry. So this is causing again complications. Somebody will be cheating others and so on. But for the sake of simplicity, we assume a perfectly competitive market structure in macroeconomics. Now, flexible prices and wages, yet another assumption to deal with macroeconomics, especially the classical economists, they believe in the assumption of wage price flexibility. So this is something to deal with the supply as well as demand, to have changes there to lead to equilibrium, etc. But this will not hold true when in the case of short-term scenario of reality. We all are dealing with uncertainty, and this is what Keynes was actually criticizing. Keynes was using to criticize the classical economists. Keynes told that sometimes this would be rigid, especially it would be rigid downwards. So again, it's a contrast that you are dealing with when you have theory as well as reality. Sometimes theory contradicts with reality due to the kind of unrealistic assumptions that we are using in theories. Now, yet another problematic assumptions that we have in macroeconomics, which is full employment. This is again one of the important assumptions used by classical economists or classical school of thought. So they believe that resources are actually fully utilized without what is called wastage. So this is a without wastage scenario. So they believe that there is no unemployment happening in reality, but what happens is that economy would be experiencing unemployment due to various factors. So we might be having something called structural unemployment. Due to structural reasons, there would be unemployment. Frictional unemployment. What happens here is that people might be changing their jobs, and in between there would be a short phase of unemployment. So this is not only with respect to labor, that happens to all factors of production. Whether we are utilizing the factors fully in an efficient manner is actually something that we have to ask ourselves, because sometimes what happens is that there would be wastage of resources coming. Sometimes the full capability of a person might not be utilized in production purpose. If you talk about disguise and environment, what happens is that we will be employing more people than what is actually required. So that means we are not actually using the complete skill of every person in production purpose. So it is a kind of wastage that is happening as far as the resource is being concerned. It's not utilized completely. Again, stable money demand, yet another problematic assumption that we have in macroeconomics. So why this has been using? To simplify the analysis related to monetary policy effects on the economy. We have to understand that when it comes to demand for money, it is actually influenced by several factors. So interest rate would be playing a role, economic condition would be playing a role, banking habits of people, this would be having a role, and so on. But in reality, what happens is that we are dealing with instability. Instability in reality. So this is not taken into consideration in macroeconomics assumptions, which will be creating problems in building theories. Now, government failure, yet another problem that we are having in macroeconomics. So what happens? We assume every the government failures. We assume that government is always efficient, but sometimes what happens is that government might be inefficient. The government might be corrupt. The government might lead to some unintended bad consequences. Here is that the government will be actually influencing the economy through its policies. So through its policy called fiscal policy. Sometimes what happens is that even the monetary policy, which is being guided by the central bank of the country, too will have its influence as a result of some fiscal policy taken by the government. Because there exists a close coordination between the government as well as the central bank here. So whatever policy that has been taken by the government will be having an influence upon the monetary policy as well. So some regulatory interventions will be happening, some public good provisions will be happening. Sometimes what happens is that we might not be having optimal results. So sometimes government will be leading to some results which is away from optimal. That is a matter of inefficiency to deal with, and we are not taken these kind of things into consideration as far as framing the assumptions for macroeconomics is concerned. It's yet another issue that we are having here. So altogether, what we could find here is that we would be building models. When we build models, we would try to make this model as much as simple as possible, as much as simplified as possible. This is what we have to tell. So when we should analyze the behavior of different units of the economy, different entities of the economy, because we have to understand how these entities are having their impacts as a result of the policies taken by the government is taken into consideration. So here again, we need to take into consideration something called the risk element that involves when there is a matter to deal with futuristic decisions or decisions that would be affecting your future. So when you make predictions regarding the future economic trends and all, sometimes to simplify the scenario, you will be using some unrealistic assumptions. So what happens here is that it's very, very important to understand and recognize that many of the assumptions that we are using in macroeconomics are to make some idealistic kind of representation. So these idealized representation would be sometimes away from what is called real world economic situations. And this is a main aspect that would be making contradictory results when you compare theories with reality. So that is all regarding the assumptions of macroeconomics. So you can get previous year question papers and answers, street study materials, live as well as recorded classes, as well as free MCQ based weekly tests if you download Learn Economy app. So what I have to tell here is that if you're a person preparing for any of the competitive exam in economics, Learn Economia would be a very good platform for you. So I'll be providing the link of the very same in the description box. You can download the app right now. Again, you can join our free Telegram community. I'll be providing the link of the same as well in the description box. That's it. Thank you for watching. You can like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more videos. Thank you.